Hello, Redwall Survivor. Foxpen here with an episode of Foxpenmanship, a Redwall Survivor podcast where Nara and I discuss the latest Mossflower Odyssey competition, Mossflower Odyssey 5 Heaven Sent. In this episode, we are going to be taking a look at the Seafarer category of the top 30 apps. So Nara and I are going to read the top 3 Seafarer character applications, then we're going to give a little review of each character in a separate video. So buckler up, raise your rums, grab a grog, and yo-ho, me hearties. This is the Seafarer category of Mossflower Odyssey's Heaven Sent top 30. Yeah, here we are. Yo ho ho and a bottle of rum. We are going to start with buys. I assume that's buys and not Bizy or Bizet. As usual, if I'm mispronouncing your name, that's your fault. Buys is a 22-year-old female rook. Here we go for the Seafarer category. Buys. Scourge! Buys winced and scrambled to avoid the salt-warped wood and patinated bronze of the ship's forecastle railing, the perils of landing on a new boat in the dark. Welcome back, Blackbird. She looked down to the main deck where Ferret waved to her, her recruiter to this miserable tub of splinters. Splitshank, you're out late. He grinned and pulled a lapel open a little wider, showing off a splash of red fabric under his tunic. Just got done finally meeting with the captain. Gave me this. Suppose I should thank you for it. Bice clacked her beak once, but kept her voice controlled and level. You got freed from your contract because winning you off your old boss earned me my commission, he said with a chuckle, a puff of breath obscuring his grin. Oh, and if you're ever allowed on leave again, don't bother checking in on her. A couple of the lads are keeping an eye on her until you worked off her debt. Bai stayed silent, her own scarf, brown and rough-spun burlap, tied to her left leg like a shackle, a reminder of the full 6 seasons she still owed. That Flora sold me for. She and I are going to have a long talk when I get out of. Best not keep the captain waiting, Splitshank said as he sauntered past, interrupting her sulk. Ye wouldn't want him to add another season to your term for idleness. She hissed a curse under her breath and waddled towards the flickering lantern light of the cabin. Inside, the owner of the Pheasant's Plume, the right dishonorable Captain Dreg, sat in a cloud of charcoal dust and stale wine stench. Bird! Back from the Southern Strait already? Aye, Captain. Ready to report and update our charts. He leaned forward in his chair and indicated the table before him. Go on, then. Show me you're worth more than the coin I could have sold you for. Buys ignored the jab and traced a claw along the parchment.
Seafarer, Dol Dredgemast. The sun hung low and golden over the harbour when Dol Dredgemast finally returned to his family's ship. His ship. He snapped his head up, the tired muscles in his neck pulsing. It didn't matter if he was tired, though. He needed to be firm with himself, or everything would fall apart. The ship was his now. So was all of the responsibility. The fishing boat was still moored at the end of the dock where he'd left it. The sight of it, and of the thin haze of smoke rising from the chimney, eased a worry that had nagged him since dawn. Then he noticed the rope ladder hanging down. He scowled as he hauled himself up on deck, expecting to find it unoccupied. Tilly would be down below, blithely burning dinner with her back to the open door. That, or she'd gone exploring again, even though he'd told her. Instead, she sat against the aft mast, a bowl of stew cradled in her paws. As big as Dol was for his age, his sister was small. She might technically be 14 now, but she looked no more than 12, short and stubby in her limbs and tail, like a giant fluffy baby. She watched him with her usual blend of skepticism and annoyance. I saw you coming, she huffed, so don't even start in about the ladder. Dol gritted his teeth and pointedly pulled the ladder up behind him, dumping it in a heap at the gunwale. Aye, and what if some beast else got here first? Cripes, Dol. I might have had to speak with some beast who ain't my brother. She gaped at him in mock horror, then jabbed her spoon at a second steaming bowl waiting at the base of the helm. I used up the last of the hot root, by the way. We'll be needing more. Well, we can't have more, Dol barked. Her eyes flashed up at him, suddenly uncertain. It ate at him, that look. He stopped glowering long enough to scrub a paw through his head fur and roll his eyes skyward. I'm taking care of it, but we don't have coins to spare for luxuries, Tilly. This was true, but only in the loosest sense. Dol wasn't making enough money labouring on the docks to buy the supplies they needed. He had, however, scrimped enough to pay the harbour master to keep an eye on his sister and the ship while he pursued more lucrative work. The kind of work a beast could easily find if he had the stomach for shedding blood, or at least the appearance of it. In that, Dol was well qualified. He was tall and burly, and his paws and forearms were scarred from fishing and pearl hunting. He could swing a cudgel well enough, and he could wrestle most any beast into submission. But killing? Dol had never. He wasn't sure he could. Tilly, oblivious to his turmoil, shrugged a petulant twist to her whiskers. Bland soup is fine, just don't call me that. Dol hesitated, forgetting for just a beat too long. Tilly dropped her bowl on the deck and scrambled to her footpaws, glaring up at him, eyes already bright with a promise of tears. My name is Till. You might be in charge until we find Mum and Dad, but you don't get to tell me who I am. Until we find Mum and Dad, who you are doesn't matter. Her tears fell and she ran below like she always did, but Dol still spat out the words, still meant them. The only thing that matters is I keep you safe.
Next up in the Seafarers category, we have Novak, the 42-year-old male pine marten. So, this is Novak. Coin cows on the beach. Greenie Harlan, fetch the bait and rose oil. Captain Novak surveyed the distant prey as his stout deckhand disappeared into the ship's hold. 20 head of sea lion basked in the sun's rise, one bull over a harem of cows. No pups in sight, but the mass of sea lions might hide a few between. Pups meant more mothers on guard, more rope to run, more... Novak spat upon the deck to stop his doubts cold. The fat of ferals would see the crew paid and his new title earned. Harlan staggered topside with the fish and cask. Hook the fish and drag 'em. Novak opened the cask and reached in shoulder deep. The pink slurry worked into the marten's pelt and assured him of the fisher's dance. Oil up and dive after me once you're done. Pardon, Captain, but it stinks of poets. Harlan pinched his nose. Are we wooing the lions? The oil saves our fur from the brine. The scent masks our own from the ferals. Aye, but Rose seems wasted on low beasts. Last captain used clove, but Rose gives us a port worth remembering. I'll change little else of what he taught me. Novak removed his overcoat and long cap and recited his former captain's words. Follow orders and we'll stay wealthy. Ask questions and you're in for grim work. Novak dove into the Black Sea. The rope about his waist and the club at his hip dragged heavier today. Heavier still as the northern chill breached his pelt, as he waited in vain for the move or freeze, Greenie, from his former captain. The nameless ship, now my ship, Novak remembered, sped along the coast, and most of the sea lion colony swam after for an easy meal. Only a nursing mother and her pup remained on the beach. Novak swam ashore and recalled the steps. The rose oil kept the marten hidden until the meters between them thinned. The mother bellowed once the sun's glint no longer hid the fisher marten. Novak's paws entered the inherited dance, and gnawed at a lasso which found her neck. He dodged from spot to spot as the slower sea lion charged, letting her tangle to an exhausted halt by the rope he trailed behind. The pup came next, and Novak eclipsed the low beast. His captain had always handled the pups, and promised they would not move or feel anything. Novak closed his eyes and raised his club. Ma! Novak dismissed the noise as the tides ebbed. Ma! Once more it sounded from the pup under his shadow. A completed word, a cry for help. Pictures of fish etched upon the sand Novak's once closed eyes missed. A pile of glittering sea stone stacked as a game beside the pup. The grim truth came as questions flooded the marten's heart and mind. They can speak? Did he hide it? Am I dreaming? Novak's throat tightened. But he said they weren't. What moves, Captain? Novak spun and found Harlan by the trapped mother's side, still dripping from the swim. Never seen a grey beast prance so fancy. Must be the rose. Harlan unfastened his club and raised it high. Oil for me from here on out, aye? The stoat's club slammed home. The nameless ship found port once more, and Novak disembarked before any cargo could. Merchants lined up for their part in the dance, the butcher for the fat, the carpenter for the ship, and the florist with a replacement cask of rose oil. Novak stormed past in search of answers.